This flower is going to be exchanged for a cold foil heart, shard, all the legendaries minus the scab skins, a Cheyenne, 2 twinning blades, and a case of each WTR, Arc, and crew. Nobody knows the future, but I believe in LSS. I put my faith in James. Let's see what happens. Happy trails, loyal flower.
All right. Welcome to FaBled Hunters.
I'm Yuanji.
I'm Saint.
And today we're going to open up the history books.
Really?
Yeah.
You haven't done one of these yet, right?
I know. So to give some context, about a year ago, we made one of our, I would say, best received, maybe worst received videos.
Critically acclaimed.
Critically panned.
Panned as well, yes.
To give you guys up to speed, we'll include a link to it right here.
Yeah.
But basically, you had just gotten into Flesh and Blood, like relatively recently.
6 months.
As
roughly.
of the making of the video.
Yeah, of that video, yeah.
And you had already been collecting magic for a while.
Since 94.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And you were making a huge bet on a relatively unproven game.
Yes.
You were trading one of the most prized assets in Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, basically it was a trade for a BGS 8.5 Alpha Black Lotus.
Yep.
I think there are only about 100, between 100 and 150 Black Lotuses that exist that at that condition are better.
Okay.
So that's out of 1,000 Black Lotuses, this is a top 10 to top 15% product.
So you traded it into Flesh and Blood of all things. Some people said, there were naysayers, there were supporters.
Yeah.
Let's just we're going to do a recap of what the trade was for, and we'll talk about kind of like where we are one year later as a retrospective.
Yeah. And at the time, it was painful because as somebody that has loved Magic the Gathering, the game, since 1994, like giving up one of the top 100 unique assets ever in history was rough. But I needed to convince the other side to give up one of the top, probably, we'll see, but probably lower than 100 assets, multiple of the sub-top 100 assets in Flesh and Blood. And I needed some trade bait. And at the time, the mindset was that because Magic was a more stable game, and it still is much more stable, much lower risk, time has proven that I was getting probably 10 to 15% upside.
Yep.
The Black Lotus that I had received was worth 150 to 160,000 at the time, whereas the Flesh and Blood was probably worth 170, 180 plus market at the time.
Okay.
Now that said, let's review really quick what I got.
What did you get?
The first, people that are saying I'm only positive about this or I'm here kissing LSS's ass. No, I'm a realist. I took a bath on Monarch, as did anybody else who had taken a position in Monarch First Edition. A part of the deal was I got 2 extended art twinning blades that were worth about $500 at the time.
Yeah.
I traded both of them for Monarch First Edition at the time. But this was in May of 2021.
Yeah, how much was twinning blades, you said?
Twinning blades were worth $500 at the time.
Okay.
These cases were worth $1,000. But to be fair, they had ticked up to $1,500. Then at one point, even $2,000 a case, I think, was the sold prices. And I think you had mentioned the pre-orders were up to $600 per box at the max.
It was a whirlwind of all of the conditions just like meeting up the perfect storm.
Yes, and it was the literal center, the eye of the storm of the money machine go burr era of the US and of the TCG economy. This is now worth like $500, and the twinning blades are now worth $1,000 each. So I went upside down on that trade.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. What other seal did you get?
I got a case. I mean, there were loose boxes, but I traded up for a case of Crucible of War.
Okay.
Not bad. It's just the third set. It's the first expansion.
Yeah.
Think of it like the Fab version of Arabian Nights, right?
Yep.
We've got Arcane Rising, which is kind of like a case of beta. There are 4 boxes of Arcane Rising in there, and there's always the sealed case premium. So these assets are the most valuable units of sealed that you can get. And obviously, we cannot forget Welcome to Wraith Alpha. There's only 16,000 boxes, 4,166 cases exists ever made of this, and this is one of the 4,000. So,
and then
that was pretty good. Yeah.
Sorry, you also got a little stack of cards to show.
Yeah.
In addition to the sealed product.
In addition to the sealed product, there was some of the top assets in the game. This was opened up from one of the extra Arcane Rising boxes. Command and Conquer, CNC.
Yep.
It's really nice. It's notoriously got some bad corners, which is reflected here, but a 9 quad plus Command and Conquer. Really nice. We had pulled a Twinning Blade, right?
Yeah. And
This is
BGS.
upside down, BGS 9.5 with a premium, right?
Yeah.
We've got some Crew Majestic cold foils.
Mm-hmm.
These are nice, right?
This was this next one, Shiana,
Yep.
was kind of a big ticket item
She was
back in the day.
huge, and now it's dropped to like a 1,000, 1,200, whatever raw. Maybe these guys are $2,000 a piece,
Yeah.
right?
And then what else?
Then we've got 2 Arknight shards.
Yep.
The FaBleds, right? These have dropped a bit as well, right?
Yeah, I think everything. And we'll do a recap in a second.
Yeah. We've got Arcane. We've got the Teklo Foundry Heart.
Yep.
Skullbone Crosswrap. Grasp of the Arknight, which is the legendary of Runeblades. Huge. Storm Striders.
Yep.
This is actually my favorite piece from this set, or from the trade. The Arcanite Skullcap. Population 1, 9.5. Quad plus plus.
Mm-hmm.
This Population 1, this is the second best skullcap in the world.
Yep.
The first best skullcap, the BGS 10 Basic, was graded in an earlier era, and I don't know, it was slightly looser grading, but I've been trying to go after that skullcap forever. The high net worth gentleman in Texas is unwilling to part with it, because he also believes in flesh and blood. We've got the Tectonic Plating, the gold, Mask of Momentum for ninjas, Brave Forge Bracers, also in gold. We got a lucky hit, 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
We're in gold, and the 2 important ones, 2 most important ones are the Heart of Fyendal, population 400 ever made, population I think 28 or 30 in gold, and the Fyendal Spring Tunic. There's still the raging debate online about which one's the best, which one's the Black Lotus of Flesh and Blood.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be talking about that for years. According to Reddit, the game would have died by now, right?
Yeah,
because it's been a year since the trade.
Yeah, so we tallied together the values of all the trade. You said
Yeah.
at the time the Black Lotus was, let's call it like 150, 160.
Yep.
And at the time the assets for the Flesh and Blood
All of this.
all together
Yep.
about 180.
Yep.
Today it's a little bit under 80. So,
It's under 80, absolutely.
So you're minus 100K, let's call it, whatever.
on the Flesh and
on
Blood.
the Flesh and Blood.
But on
minus-
the trade, I'm minus 50%,
Sure,
52%, whatever that is. Like, let's say I had a $160,000 asset.
Mhm.
Now it's worth 78,000 or 77,000 or whatever that math comes out
Yeah,
to.
so if the gentleman came up to you today, offer you the same trade, here's the Flesh and Blood that I'm giving you.
I want an Alpha Lotus in that
Alpha
condition.
Lotus.
Yeah.
Would you
no,
do it?
No, of course not.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
I'd be an idiot. I'd be a shill to say that I believed in something so much that I'd pay double market value for it. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
there's no way I would take that trade. Would I still pay south of 77? Would I pay like 72,000 for all of these assets today? Yes, absolutely. And those trades are still happening. I've never stopped accumulating or trading in and out of Magic the Gathering or trading in and out of Flesh and Blood.
Does that mean that you regret trading Magic into Flesh and Blood?
No, I would never regret a trade in TCGs, just like I don't allow myself to regret decisions I make in life or decisions I make in business, because, as an adult, as a businessman, or as just a grown-ass man, you've got to take accountability for all the decisions you make. There's such a lack of accountability in society today where it's like, oh, well, if something doesn't go my way, then why did it happen to me? Why me? Why me? Like, your life is a result of all the decisions you make, and you have agency over how you do it. Just like, you can't have it your way both sides. Just like I took a 50% loss here. If you remember the 2020 transaction with Channel Fireball, me buying 100 cases of their vintage product for whatever, $300,000, that's gone up for 4x plus. That's gone up 400 something percent. And even if that didn't go up, I made that decision and I held on to the product, and I made this channel and I'm really bought in. I really like these items. I did what I did. I don't regret it. And if anything, I mean, these items in front of me, this represents 10 of the 12 nicest assets and most in-demand assets. The Power 12, if you will. Like these 5, the heart, all the way to the striders and the skull cap. We're missing the Eye of Ophidia, which happens to be the most valuable, right?
Yeah.
Of the 6 Power 12 and Arcane Rising. And here we've got all the high-end stuff, all the top end. It's like this, that one, and then the smallest one is Scabskin Leathers, right?
Yeah.
So I've got that. And this is a position. This is definitely just something to hold, in flesh and blood, signifying my support of the game and my belief in the game. And so what if it's down 52%? I'm confident in saying that we've made it through the worst. James White and LSS has navigated through this post-Monarch, recession world, right? We're currently in a recession, whether the Fed and the US government wants to admit it or not.
Okay.
It's been 2 quarters of declining GDP.
Yeah.
And life is really tumultuous, really turbulent. There's a lot of unknowns coming up in our future. But that said, the market tested a low. Bitcoin was as low as 17,000, and that was bad. And I mean, speaking of Bitcoin, I lost 52% in flesh and blood, let's say. Overall, flesh and blood has dropped by 52% in the past year. Bitcoin has been as high as 68,000, and it's dropped as low as 17,000. So Bitcoin took as much as a 75% loss. And, I'm invested in Bitcoin. I felt that I had the fear of missing out when all of my other friends, many of them are affluent. They bought into Bitcoin. They're like, oh, get in before it's 100,000. And I remember it being 58,000, 60,000. And I bought into it. And I'm like, okay, well, I can afford it at this price. I like it at this price. I liked it more when it was in the 40s. And I probably gave up when it dropped in the 30s and under. I was like, crap, okay, well, if it goes to zero, it goes to zero. And that's, I made my bet. I'll gladly lay in it. Right? Just like it could have, or it did drop to 17,000, it could have just as easily gone to 170,000 if the market had gone up, right?
Yeah,
that's really
true.
what it is.
Well, I'm pretty excited to kind of see if we're still making YouTube videos. Maybe in 2 years, in 4 years, we'll take like a 3-year, 5-year look back.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? I think any kind of bets without any risk, there's also no returns.
Yes, there's no risk, no return.
So
they're correlated.
At the time, I told you that I thought that this was a pretty risky gamble.
Yeah.
And this is where we were at today. Do you have anything to say at the end, now that everything's all said and done 1 year later?
Well, 1 year later, the people on MTG Reddit, they said it was a sham, but obviously it wasn't, because later on I shared the text messages that the other side of the trade had written. He had written a letter as well, and this is verified by multiple well-known LGS owners in the Northwest. He had shown off that Black Lotus to other individuals, and he's on the winning side of the trade today.
Yep.
But I made this deal, and I made my moves in 2020 and 2021, and I haven't stopped making moves. I haven't stopped my support of Flesh and Blood, because I believe in how amazing of a game it is. At the time of 2020, I think late 2020, when I had made my large purchase, I think there was something like 1,000 registered gem accounts and probably 10 or 20,000 players. Nowadays, I believe there are over 20,000 registered gem accounts. Official, you'd call it like the Magic version of DCI accounts, DCI numbers. and I'm hearing that there are over 500,000 players. So the game has expanded 20x. Now, because of the market manipulation, because of bad actors, because of very simple human greed, some things have happened to manipulate the price up and then back down. I have nothing to do with it because just like everybody else, I took a bath on Monarch. I've probably, spent $1 million buying Monarch sealed product and still have it. Don't regret it. I love the product. I still like it. I mean, two of the heroes are about to be living legended, so half of Monarch is irrelevant for the near future, right?
Yeah.
But in the long term, I would say Library of Solana, when player versus environment PvE comes in, it's going to be relevant again. I'd say Prism is a pretty awesome hero to have, just to have the different shields and the different auras, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of this will play in, and I said really early on that I bought into Flesh and Blood because I believe in the direction, I believe in the spirit of the game, and Flesh and Blood reminds me so much of what Magic the Gathering wanted to become, what it was in its heyday and it wanted to become. Unfortunately, in the early 2000s, I believe, Magic the Gathering sold out to Hasbro and has lost its way, lost its soul. And that's why today we're making a Flesh and Blood channel and not a Magic the Gathering channel, right?
That's true.
So, Yuanji, what are your thoughts in general? What are your thoughts about this deal, man?
It's kind of interesting. I kind of view your trade
Mm-hmm.
as being like, it's kind of like what you said. You can't time the market.
You cannot.
So this trade is just like a part of your larger like movement.
Exactly. Absolutely. It's part of my larger movement. And I still believe in Legend Story Studios.
Yeah.
I think that they've already done the very best to right the ship after the Monarch and the Tales of Aria debacle. I think Everfest still having some supply in the market. That's a result of the supply chain issues caused by the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
right? I really do believe that Everfest, Tales was definitely already ordered and printed by the time Monarch released.
Yeah.
But by the time all this Monarch fallout was happening, I believe that the print numbers were already set for Everfest. So they've already made up for it. If you look at the current meta, current Uprising is probably the most celebrated set in the history of Flesh and Blood.
Yeah.
It's being sold out worldwide, and it's print to demand, and it's still being sold out worldwide. Like Asia has restocked, Europe has restocked, the US has restocked, and I'm still hearing from people in the US saying, oh, well, it's restocked, but it's sold out again. We need another order, we need another wave, which is great. It's great news for the true believers of this game. And I said since day one, it's not, about the 1 year, it's not about the 3 year. This is about the 5 to 20 years, and I hope to be around when Flesh and Blood is celebrating its 25th and 30th anniversaries. And as for the people that have stayed for the 20 minutes or so of the video, I mean, there was one statement, I think, that showed up on our YouTube, on the original episode. A fool and his lotus are soon parted.
Ah, yes.
Well, yes. I guess I was the fool, but did that person actually own a Black Lotus in Alpha? Did any of the top 1,000 most active Redditors in MTG Finance, any of you actually own a Black Lotus? Because here's another Alpha Black Lotus. It's actually in better condition than the one I traded. It's not my only Black Lotus in Alpha. So, I guess this fool somehow found a way to accumulate another Black Lotus. And I mean, the running joke is, despite how many Flesh and Blood assets I have easily tenfold in Magic the Gathering. And despite, some of the viewers who tune in from Europe hoping that tax enforcement agencies come in, and try to, give me trouble, everything's backed up with LLCs and revenues and expenses, because like Rudy, like open boosters, like the other people that figured out life and figured out the game of capitalism, we're backed up and we're completely legit. We don't need to cut corners or take shortcuts. We earned it every single step of the way. And the ones making these bets, the ones actually putting their money where their mouth is, if and when there returns, we're going to be the victors. And honestly, for all the people like, oh, you lost $80,000, I'll tell you how much I spent. I paid for that Alpha Black Lotus in 8.5 basic. I still remember the price. It came in the larger deal, but that price, the asking price was 37,000 even. And because it was a larger deal, I took a 30% discount. I think it came out to $25,900 as part of a 7-figure deal. So I really hope the people in MTG Finance, I mean, I don't even know if they can comprehend of something in the multiples of millions. They can think about it, and it's an abstract concept to them. But keep on doing what you guys do, MTG Finance. You guys are absolutely right. You guys have it all figured out. That said, I think that's it for now, right? Like, comment, subscribe. Join our Patreon if you want. We'll talk about monetization behind the scenes because apparently these fools don't know. We don't know what we're talking about, but hopefully you support us, right? We just have top assets and 6-figure lotuses and whatnot. So see you next time, guys. Bye.
If you made it this far in the video, we have a sneak preview of another big deal. So you said you're not done trading.
I was never done. There have been multiple 5- and 6-figure transactions and $3,000 to $10,000 transactions in Flesh and Blood happen daily, with just with me, and they're happening all over the place in the community. I think it was Baron Ferdinand or somebody, some very wealthy French guy. He was saying, buy when there's blood in the streets, even if the blood is your own. And I mean, taking a 52% loss, that sucks. But those of you that can actually weather a 50 or 60 or 70 or 80% loss, right now is really the time to be accumulating all assets, whatever assets you can. I just choose that one of my larger TCG moves will continue to be in Flesh and Blood. I've got some really big moves on the table that might involve Magic the Gathering. They might involve Alpha. It's not going to be this Black Lotus, but yeah, this is my baby quad. So yeah, there's some really spicy deals out there, and I just like to keep making moves to accumulate more of the top end Flesh and Blood assets. But hopefully you guys stay tuned. We'll see how it all works out.
Is it going to be a bigger deal than this one?
I'm not sure yet. We're still talking about it. We're still figuring it out, but it's definitely not going to be a small deal.
All right, stay tuned.
Stay tuned.